What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'll be your host and producer for the show, Logan Landers, and joining me here today is a group of very talented individuals, very talented broadcasters. We're going to be talking about the San Francisco 49ers and what's the latest happenings around them with the preseason about to wrap up, and as we get one day closer, of course, to the start of the regular season. Help me out in talking about this team is a couple of really solid fans, of course, William Yanish, who is half of the Under the Bleachers podcast. William, this is your team. I know you're excited to talk about them today. How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great, man.
Glad to hear. As always, we got Brandon Larson coming back. Brandon, glad to have you back, my friend. And I know you're excited for today.
Oh, yes, sir. Appreciate having me back.
Looking forward to it. And, of course, the man himself, Mr. Football, Vincent Turner, breaking it down so eloquently like he does every single week. Vincent, how you doing, sir?
Pleasure to be here with some outstanding gentlemen to talk football at its highest level. Thank you today.
We are looking forward to it. And of course, if you guys enjoy this episode, like, follow, share, and subscribe. Facebook and YouTube, main two platforms over there. But you can also go and download our podcast thanks to the Believe Podcast Network on all major streaming platforms. So let's just get into this one. And William, I will give you the ball first and foremost. What do you think of the Niners and how they've been doing so far throughout the preseason and getting geared up for the regular season?
Well, outside of the diva wide receivers like Brandon Ayuk, and I definitely see that he is a player that is right on the edge of elite, and he just needs to get in there. There's supposedly a deal structured with the Steelers, and what they said is we wanted a wide receiver back or like Pat Freiermuth, and a second round pick I think that would definitely do it. I would love to see him across from George Kittle on this team, with Brock Purdy and just the way that he knows his tight ends, outside of those, phantom no call holding penalties. This is a team that would have won the Super Bowl last year, and that's just how it is this year. It's Super Bowl or bust. There's all these players on there, between Deebo Samuel, between Trent Williams, between and then drafting Ricky Pearsall. Supposedly in the draft we were offered pick number 34, which turned out to be Ladd McConkey from Georgia, and that's an excellent pick, right there. And just not knowing what the contract situation was, kind of one of those things, Shanahan and Lynch probably brushed off a little bit, but the thing is, Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in the league, and it's not particularly close. But running backs, they're only going to last so long. And Shanahan, that's what they're known for. Mike Shanahan, his father, with the zone blocking scheme, and pulling running backs like Terrell Davis and just all that kind of stuff. Just the offense is just so beautiful to watch. And just as it goes into motion, it's so smooth. One thing that I saw was, Ricky Pearsall happened to, adjust to Brock Purdy throwing the football. And that is one thing that I can absolutely see. Pearsall had Graham Mertz last year, and the year before had Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson just doesn't know what he's looking at downfield. He's just looking for a wide open receiver. But, those quarterbacks are nothing like Purdy, with the ball placement and the soft touch, and I can definitely see that is the thing that needs to be adjusted, and like I said, it's Super Bowl or bust for this team right now. And I am just so happy that I'm.
Oh, looks like we might have lost Mr. Yanish. Oh, let's see here. Here he comes back here. There you go, William. You back?
Oh, anyway, yeah, I was talking about the Super Bowl or bust, and what's going to happen, when it comes down to the playoffs. There's not too many teams that match up to what the San Francisco 49ers are. You know, like I mentioned Trent Williams, like I mentioned Deebo Samuel, like I mentioned just the defense in general, you know. I mean, completely, you know, held Patrick Mahomes, you know, in check pretty much in that game. And, you know, being the first game that ever went to overtime in the Super Bowl, that's definitely one thing. But, you know, I just want to see what happens. You know, the defensive line is just, you know, awesome. You know, Greenlaw will be back after, you know, I saw where he tore his Achilles, and I mean, just walking out onto the field down, and it was like, oh wow, you know, those no contact injuries are something that are very brittle. But, you know, Greenlaw coming back, and with rookies, you know, showing off like Malik Mustafa and, you know, Renardo Green and just all these players. But like I said, that is the one thing. And then, you know, I'll pass it on to the other Niners fan here, Brandon, you know, and see what you got, man.
Thanks, William.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, big thing on my mind is the Ayuk situation, because I can argue it both ways. I can see his value, what he brings to the team, and I can also, you know, say, you know, why not. And the biggest thing, I think he's so underused, but he does so much with so little in that regard. Because if you were to take Tyreek Hill, for example, cut him to 75 receptions. Well, that's what Ayuk had, so we match it up, and Ayuk beats him in yards per reception. Right? We're talking about Hill, like, greatest deep threat since Jerry Rice, I think, most arguably. And so when you look at it that way, it's like, okay, so this dude is or does have a skill set, you know, in the Tyreek Hill or the Devontae Adams conversation of the league. I don't know if you guys know. So in one stat I found very interesting, he was almost a yard more per separation per average route run. I thought that was, like, I don't think people realize how insane that is, because just to even have a yard of separation per route run is crazy. But for him to have more than a yard more than the closest wide receiver to him, I think, like, that's a statement to his route running. It's crisp, it's clean, and easily a top 3 route runner in the league right now. And I think people don't realize that, because he's not getting fed like a top 3 wide receiver in this league, right? He's not getting 100+ receptions, but yet he's up there in the yards. So that's where I'm like, he does more with less. You know, so in that argument, he's right there with the Tyreek Hills, the Justin Jeffersons of the league. But then on the flip side, are Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill surrounded by the amount of skill position, you know, a CMC, a George Kittle, a Deebo Samuel? Because, like, I'm not saying he makes the best of his reps, but does he see double teams like Tyreek Hill? Does he see double teams like Justin Jefferson? No, because I mean, the offense is loaded on the Niners. I mean, like, if I were to look at it from a defensive perspective, I'm looking at the Niners. What do I got to stop first? Well, first and foremost, I got to stop CMC, because if you don't stop him, then it's just going to be a long day out the gate. But then second, I'm most worried about Deebo, because Deebo, I mean, any point of the field, like, he's proved that you put a ball in his hands and like, I mean, revert to that Eagles game, like, just a little underneath crosser, and he's going to take it 65 yards. So that's my next biggest worry. And then I was thinking, depending team matchup, depending if my corners are better or my linebackers are better, it's going to be Kittle or Ayuk is the third person I'm now having to worry about on the Niners. But we're now talking these, you know, third or fourth, depending, you know, if I got better linebackers, then I'm going to trust them to go the one-on-one with Kittle, and I'm going to try and take care of Ayuk. But if I'm worried about my corners, I'm going to put a safety on Ayuk too, and chance the one-on-one with Kittle and the linebackers. That's kind of where I'm wondering, is he eating and is he doing as much with as little as he gets because of everything around him? And I mean, it's hard to tell. Like, do we feed him and then he puts up a 2,000-yard season, or does that start coming down a little bit because then he starts drawing more double teams? Because all of a sudden they're like, oh, he is the go-to guy. But I don't think anybody here is arguing he's the first thing you're worried about stopping on the Niners offense.
Good point.
Maybe not even the second, right? So like I said, I can argue it both ways. And then I think the other thing too would come down to it's if he wants to get paid or if he wants to make an impact in the game of football. What I mean by that is because he always talked about, like, when people would compare him to like Devontae Adams, he would always be like, well, I want to make my own name. I want people to compare other people and be like, oh, he's like a Brandon Ayuk. Well, if he wants that, then he better stay with Kyle Shanahan, because the bottom line is, no matter any situation in the NFL, there's not a better coach that knows how to use him better than Kyle Shanahan. And my argument or my backing to that is just revert to the 2 Hall of Fame wide receivers in Julio Jones and Andre Johnson. They had their best years under Kyle Shanahan. That's not a coincidence. And I mean, the offensive players having their best years under Shanahan, there's not a coincidence that they all have their best years under him. So if he wants to make an impact on the game, he better take what the Niners are offering, and he'll be playing in championships, and he'll be playing in January and February. If not, he can take the bag wherever, which he proved apparently that's not maybe what he wants completely, because he got offered the $32 million to the Patriots. He didn't want to go. It turns out maybe he likes winning football games too. Apparently that means a little bit of something to him too. And that's kind of where I'm like, dude, you can take that bag and go to that team that, you're going to draw those double teams and you're going to be the guy. And it'll be up to you to prove if you're really that guy without the other guys, or you can stay with all the guys and be that guy that sees the single team coverage all the time. You know what I mean? Like the man-on-man coverage that he gets, he's going to reap the rewards here at the Niners and maybe, have a chance to go down in history. But I can tell you, anywhere else, there's not another coach that will use him better than where he's at currently. And that's the bottom line on the Ayuk situation for me. The other thing that jumped out to me, I don't know if you guys caught a look at that rookie guard, Dominic Pooney, the Punisher. Dude, that guy, he is looking like a road grader on the interior of our line. Baldy did a breakdown, and I think he broke it down best. I mean, looking at it, if we would have had that guard play, we would have rolled through the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, he allowed one pressure and what was it, 30 or 40 attempts, something like
40,
that.
Yeah, 44 pass rush reps, and he's allowed 1 pressure.
Yep.
And then not only that though, like he's got work to do in the run game, but not. I mean, that's being nitpicky. It's not that he can't. He's moving guys. There was a hole he created on the goal line, and Baldy pointed out, he's like, you think CMC is going to run through that? You're like, CMC is going to like moonwalk back through that type scenario. But there was another one where it was a polling. They were polling to the left, and the defense stunted the opposite direction. So he's polling with, and he notices the stunt coming, and he picks it up, and I think saves Purdy's life, because it would have been the rookie running back on one-on-one with a free D tackle. But instead he picks him up and then help, then gets the help from Shard. But that gave him the extra second for Purdy to get rid of the ball. And it's just that awareness. And then on another one, he actually is rolling out to the right, steps on McKivit's foot. And I think he realizes in his head, he's like, oh, I might have just messed up my tackle. And you literally see him spin and rotate around to pick up the guy coming around the outside, because he's anticipating McKivitz is going to be out of position because I just stepped on his foot and stopped him from successfully making his block. And the way he recovered from it and picked up the block, it's like he plays with a level of knowledge too that I don't think I've seen from any guards of this current Niners regimen. Like I remember like Alex Boone, he got pretty nasty in there. I'm trying to remember. kind of the guards of the Jim Harbaugh days. Like that line was nasty. They were going to move you, and I mean they were technique sound as well. And I don't think I've seen that good a guard play until Pooney coming in, and I'm stoked for it because I'm like, out of everything, we were, like I said, if we had that type of guard play, we're celebrating a Super Bowl, because like he's already displayed that he's got awareness. He's not in any way going to let some just unblocked rusher come straight at his quarterback, and he's got the movement to get in front of him. So I know I'm really stoked about that. And the development of Brock Purdy. I mean, we're hitting year 3. He's coming off of he's now coming off of a full successful season. I think a lot of people don't realize he was injured still recovering technically up in like November, almost December. So it's like, this is his first time we're going to get the off season. He's going to be able to actually progress and work on his game and his craft, not just trying to get back to where he was. And I mean, he's already shown he's a cerebral player. One of my favorite sayings is like, it doesn't matter all the physical ability. As a quarterback, it's only worth 20% of the position. If you don't have the other 80 between the ears, it really doesn't matter, which is kind of what I think we're going to eventually see with Caleb Williams for that example. But his progression, year 3 is when you see him put it all together. He almost did it last year while rehabbing an injury on his throwing arm. Now this year, it's all gas, no brakes. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to see what he does following up his year 2 performance of what I believe should have been MVP. When you look at it, all the numbers he leads in. Last year, Lamar Jackson winning MVP. He was the first MVP winner that didn't lead in overall QBR in like the last 10 years. So I think he was the MVP this year, but I think he follows it up, and all things goes well, I think he should have a good shot at winning it next year, to be honest.
Yeah, and we'll see. And Mr. Football, what are your thoughts on this Niners team? There's been a lot of headlines, and I know there's also been some headlines made up front with Trent Williams. What's your thoughts on that situation?
I just had a question. I just want to know some of the Niners faithful was the Trent Williams situation, but I want to comment. This is before I give it back over to the Niners faithful. This is a Super Bowl team. It's Super Bowl or bust. Pro Bowlers at every position, but I'm gonna start with Brandon A. Not gonna call him by his last name. I thought about his situation. And I look at it like this: the NFL is not for long. Pick it back on you, Brandon. The Patriots, I didn't know, offered him $32 million, but obviously you got kind of like the bag is in your corner. So I'm looking at, I would like to go to a team that can possibly win. I thought he'd end up signing with the Steelers, but we know what kind of quarterback problems they're having right now in preseason. But I'm gonna bring up a stat that I heard somebody brought up. I'm a Cowboys fan. Don't hold that against me. I'm on y'all platform today. But look how Dallas uses CD Lamb. He gets a lot of touches. He gets a lot of eating. Cincinnati does that with Jamar Chase, even though they have T. Higgins. Mm-hmm. Justin Jefferson gets a lot of eating. What I mean by that, they're the number 1 options. But I look at Brandon A. Man, you got Debo Samuels, all pro. You got Christian McCaffrey, all pro. You got George Kittle, all pro. You got to share that eating with them. So when you go out and you run routes, you basically just fitting into the offense. And as you just said, Mr. Brandon, he's still putting up the numbers. So I'm looking at it like this. I probably want my money too. Because I'm not really, even though you brought up a good point, Mr. Brandon, he probably getting man-to-man coverage. But also he still got to share that, he got to share that wealth with our pros here. So I'm looking at, because I'm comparing him with CD Lamb. Dallas didn't have nobody but CD Lamb. Look how they kind of invented ways to get him the ball. And that's why he put up enormous numbers, and that's why he holding out. But with Brandon A., no question about it, you like to stay with San Francisco. Your points are very valid. But also, too, I want to get paid, too. I'm sorry that Justin Jefferson raised the market. But But at the end of the day,
You done broke it.
I'm not going to too much say Justin Jefferson is so much better than Brandon A. Because when I watch Brandon A play, it seems like he's got to find ways where he can get fed. He's playing with 3 all-pro players, man, that's getting fed. Kittle, Samuel.
And going through those reads, Purdy is only getting, to his second, third, fourth read. And that's why, the top ones there are getting fed like McCaffrey, like Ayuk, like Kittle. And that's the one thing I was wondering about where, Ricky Pearsall is going to fit in as a slot receiver,
But I'm looking at this with Brandon A. When I watch the Niners, and I always judge this, your special players step up in prime time. Brandon A stepped up in the NFC Championship game against Detroit. Look at the catch. That's all I'm saying here, Niners faithful. I don't want to start nothing today, but that's what I'm saying. I just want no situation on Trent Williams because, man, y'all got to have him in camp. The best left tackle ever just played this game. And as far as me, watching the Niners play this past weekend, I was very impressed with Renato Green, defensive back out of Florida State. Seen him play a lot of football, but he looked like one of them guys that's going to really fit in with the Niner Nation. Look where you're coming from, DBU, Bobby Butler. You feel me, Logan? Deion Sanders, Terrell Buckley. He's going to be a player for the Niners. But the Niners, y'all have a Super Bowl roster. And I'm going to say this, Brock Purdy is going into his year 3. I expect him to have a big year. But look at everything y'all got constructed as a roster. And I'm going to tell you another Georgia Bulldog that y'all picked up, Leonard Floyd. Is a player. He was a player at Georgia. That's why he got drafted in the first round by the Bears. But giving it back to you, Mr. Landers.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how this Niners team's going to perform. Like you said, they have a lot of talent. There's no question about that. And we'll see if all the additions they've made in the offseason, what they can do with the contract situations and whatnot, if they can get that rectified here in the next few days before the season starts, and how that's going to play out with Brock Purdy and company. But I know one thing, though. It's going to be a fun time out there for a San Francisco 49ers fan once again. It's going to be
I have one more.
Good time.
Can I make one more request, please? I want to say this to the San Francisco 49ers faithful. John Lynch, when he took the GM job, I just thought there was somebody that's going to plug in, but I got to give kudos, respect, and love to John Lynch. If he's not one of the top 2 GMs in the league right now for how he's built that 49ers organization with his drafting expertise and him being a Pro Bowl and a Hall of Famer, I just didn't see that coming. But I think a lot of success should go to Mr. John Lynch. And that's all I have to say. That's my final words today here on the San Francisco 49ers podcast.
I'll piggyback on that. It's the John Lynch Kyle Shanahan marriage. It's their unity there. Lynch can pick out the heart of the player, and Kyle can pick out the skill of the player.
That's it.
Except for when it comes to Trey Lance, but
we're all allowed to make mistakes when we're finding George Kittles and Fred Warners in the 3rd and 5th round of the draft. All right.
Hey, y'all stepped on some toes now because Trey Lance with the Cowboys. I can't let y'all do that. I'm not gonna let you do that. I'm not gonna let you do that, William. I'm not gonna. He looked good against the Raiders.
I heard that Trey Lance looked good the other night.
Yeah,
preseason. So
let it go. Let it go.
100-some yards.
Let it go.
And I think we will table that. That's another episode for another day.
Next week.
Let's go.
Coming back.
Bang bang Niners gang, baby.
But guys, hey, if you all enjoyed the episode, like, follow, share, and subscribe, Facebook and YouTube. Once again, thank you to William Yanish III, of course, Brandon Larson for hopping in, and Mr. Football Vincent Turner for providing their expertise on the San Francisco 49ers. I've been your host and producer, Logan Landers.